So I went to go see the movie Mickey 17 today, and honestly, I was a little bit disappointed. I saw the trailer and thought, this is a pretty unique premise for a movie. I will go into it with an open mind. That was a mistake. I feel like I can never go into a movie these days without being somehow cautious. But anyways, let's get right into the preliminary hearing. Actually, before we get into the preliminary hearing, I want to call out Regal and Warner Brothers real quick because I got upcharged $5 for my movie ticket, even though I have an unlimited subscription where I pay 25 bucks a month. It used to be 20 bucks a month, so that's not helping your case either. It's 25 bucks a month and I get to see unlimited movies for free, or almost free because there's like a 50-cent booking fee, which is fine. But they slapped on an extra $5 for my movie ticket. Now, I have a suspicion of why they did this, and we'll get into all that here in just a second. But I just want to say, I don't know if this is exactly what happened, but Regal, if these movie distributors like Warner Brothers are charging your customers extra money, even though they expect to see their movies for free, just either pay the fees yourself or don't show their movies in your theater. Anyways, this movie is based on a book called Mickey 7, which came out 3 years ago. After the movie was announced, can we give the fans of the book some time to be fans of the book before we announce a movie? I'm going to make a ruling right now where books need a 5-year at least publication period before a movie gets released, because I don't even know what to say about that. The movie stars Robert Pattinson, who's a good actor, but just unfortunately can't stay away from weird roles. He was in Twilight, which is probably his most normal role, even though those movies are funnier than they are dramatic. And I know someone's not going to like that I said that, but I've met radical feminists who think that that movie is funnier than it is dramatic, so... He was also in Devil All the Time, which, again, he was good in, but his character was just there to mock Christianity. But, I mean, the whole movie does that anyways. Speaking of which, Tom Holland is another actor who can't stay away from weird roles. He was also in High Life, which, by the way, I watched the trailer for Mickey 17, and I thought it was going to be a sequel or a prequel to High Life, but then I heard Robert Pattinson's voice, and I was like, okay, it's not a sequel. It's just a vividly similar premise with the same lead actor. At least according to my 7-year-old memory, High Life is based on these criminals who, instead of going to prison, they go on these experimental space voyages, so kind of similar to Mickey 17. I could be wrong about that, though. And I mean, he was good in that, too, but that was just another bizarre movie that I felt so unsettled after watching. The movie also stars Naomi Ackie, who I don't recognize in the slightest. We've got Mark Ruffalo, who, if you guys know anything about me just by watching my past 6 videos, you guys know exactly how I feel about Mark Ruffalo. Mark Ruffalo has what I like to call the shittest touch, where pretty much every movie he's in, besides Marvel movies, just turns to shit. Actually, I take that back. She-Hulk was pretty shit. We also have Toni Collette, who was good in Hereditary, even though that movie was just another bizarre waste of my time. She was pretty funny in Knives Out, and she was very good in Unbelievable, which is a close story to my heart. Now, the movie is rated R. It runs at 137 minutes and has a budget of 118 million Washingtons. Nice job, Warner Bros., on one of the riskiest box office releases that I haven't just seen from you, but that I've ever seen in my entire life. I don't see this movie making much profit. Last I checked, today's Saturday, last I checked, the movie has made only between $9 and $15 million. You remember that $5 upcharge I told you guys about earlier? I suspect this is why. But, I mean, we'll see. I've been proven wrong before. And then just a quick synopsis from IMDb. Mickey 17, known as an expendable, goes on a dangerous journey to colonize an ice planet. Thank you very much, IMDb. The trailers are good, I suppose, but it's just that the story that they set up doesn't quite align with the actual story of the movie. They set up the conflict being, the tension between the two multiples, even though that's not actually the conflict of the movie. The conflict of the movie is them coexisting with the life on Niflheim and just colonizing this planet. So I'll be starting a new format with these videos. I'm not going to get into the plot anymore just because I feel like that's kind of a waste of time. Instead, what I'll do is for most of the month, I'll just do these regular reviews where I just talk about the movie. And then once a month, I'll do full reviews where I talk about the movie and go into the plot a bit. This month, it'll probably be Snow White. That being said, there will be spoiler talk, so if you want to hear my final verdict spoiler free, skip to this time in the video. So let's get the good things out of the way first. I thought the premise of the movie was very unique. I thought that the idea of printing humans, cloning them, and then the legal theory backing it up was very creative, and I liked that going in. The movie does have its funny moments, though not as much as I was hoping, or it was just underwhelming. I had a few scoffs here and there, but by no means was I like struggling to breathe or anything. The CGI is actually pretty impressive in my opinion. I don't feel like the cinematography makes it feel too immersive, but it still looked very real. The production design is fine. There's only really two sets though. There's like inside the colony and outside the colony. So, I mean, it didn't look bad, but it also wasn't eye candy either. The sound design is grounded. It's not those stupid sound effects that are unrealistic, over the top, ear tickling effects that just paid no attention to reality at all. And I think Hollywood's starting to get better with that. Okay, I'll talk about the characters now. The Mickeys were okay. I just didn't feel like they were developed too much, which is surprising since it was over 2 hours long. We do get like a little bit of a character arc where they're talking about like the death of their mother, but other than that, there's not much else. Every time Mickey is reprinted, he kind of gets like a new personality, and I just thought that it was a little bit too convenient that the one that ends up being his multiple is the one that's like kind of like the bad one, thus obviously some dramatic tension. Then we have Nasha, who is a completely undeveloped character and is even unlikable at certain points. And it's annoying because she's in love with Mickey, but there's no romantic buildup. There's no romantic tension at all. The movie just kind of establishes that they're in love and then expects a bunch of emotional weight to go along with that, even though there's none at all. Oh my god. And then we have Marshall, who's just a blatant allegory of three historical figures: Christopher Columbus, Adolf Hitler, and Donald J. Trump himself. Christopher Columbus because he's invading this planet without any care for the native life there. Adolf Hitler because he wants a pure white race and wants to gas the alien life on the planet. And then Donald Trump because he's made out to be the most incompetent character in the whole movie. He has a bunch of idiot supporters that wear red hats, and he is unaccepting of his election losses. What makes the whole Trump thing really interesting is that Marshall actually gets grazed by a bullet in the movie. It's so stupid too because it wastes a good villain. The issue with incompetent villains or villains that aren't that like strong is that they're way too easy to kill or conquer by the end, and that's definitely the case with this movie, just like it was in Captain America. And of course we just had to have Nasha, the black woman, replace him as leader at the end of the movie. Then we have Kai, who she's highly implied to be a bisexual, but it could still be written off as she's just very close with a couple of the other females in the story. So I won't count that towards my verdict, but I just thought it was still worth mentioning. Marshall also asks Kai if she'll be his specimen for his pure white race, and she asks him, "Am I just a uterus to you?" And then they just mock Christianity for the next 2 minutes. And none of that contributed anything to the story. They just completely forgot about it. It's never brought up again. So it was just a pointless political insert. Now, as far as the story goes, it just feels like a mess in a dark hallway that's bumping into walls trying to find its way to the ending. The plot just goes in so many different directions. And I suspect that it's because they're not being faithful to the book that it's based on. Because the whole premise of the movie is that Mickey is running from these loners, and he applies to be an expendable so that he can get away from them. And when they accidentally clone him because multiples are illegal, They have to figure out a way to survive, but that's not the actual story. Like I said earlier, the story is that they're trying to colonize this planet Niflheim and coexist with the alien life there. Now, I haven't read the book, but on the way home from the movies, I listened to like a half-hour summary of the book, which first of all sounded way more interesting than the movie, but mainly it sounded very different from the movie. Now, there's different movie adaptations that are better when they're faithful and then better when they're unfaithful. A good example of a good movie adaptation that's faithful to the books is The Hunger Games. The movies are very, very close to what happened in the books because the books are actually very creatively wealthy and deserve that recognition from the movie. But then on the other hand, you have books like The Maze Runner, which are good books, but they're just kind of hard to visualize on screen. So I think the changes made by the movie actually make it seem way more realistic. And that's one of the reasons why I like the movie so much more than the books. Mickey 17, again, based on my vague understanding of the book, probably should have been more faithful to the book because many of the moments that felt pointless in the movie made way more sense in the book. One perfect example of this was Birdo and the Associate or whatever. That plot point just felt like it was there purely to fulfill the source material, and just in the movie, it felt so pointless. And then we were talking about Kai earlier. The movie dedicates a good segment of its time to her, but then the plot just goes out for a carton of milk on her. The movie just goes so many different directions. Like, we have the multiples, then they fight each other, then they're good, then there's like a random dinner, then there's a short romance between Kai and Mickey, and then there's a threesome with the two Mickeys, and then Mickey 17 gets cucked. Then there's like a TV show segment, then the Mickeys and Nasha go to jail, they luck their way out of jail. Then there's like this swarm of aliens, and then Marshall wants the Mickeys to play some random pointless game, and it feels like the movie has to hit all these different plot points, but struggles to figure out how to fit them together in the right order. The climax is half-assed and is somewhat unearned. Like I said earlier, it's hard to have a climactic ending when your villain is just totally incompetent and doesn't wield much ability physically. They also did this fake-ass plot twist, which actually wasn't a plot twist. All it did was just drag the movie out longer and just make it more confusing. People in the audience were like confused as to what was going on. So that was the movie Mickey 17. For my final verdict, I will be ruling against this movie at 35%. It was just a mess, plain and simple. I was constantly asking myself in my seat, where is this movie going? Mickey 17 is from the director Bong Joon-ho, who's effectively a communist, yet he spends millions of dollars making a movie hoping to get revenue off of it. Explain that one away, commies. However, I did think Parasite was a good movie and deserved its Oscar, but Mickey 17 just does not do it. I think this movie probably would have done better as a TV show. It's just there's so much to unpack with this story, and I think individual episodes would have done a better job unpacking those plot lines. Now, should you go see it? Should you rent it or stream it or not watch it at all? I would say if you're a fan of Robert Pattinson, or you just want to put on something in the background while you're doing arts and crafts or something, sure, but I wouldn't spend any money on this movie directly. But that'll be all for today. Next week I want to try and review Novocaine and Black Bag, so we'll see, but that's all for this case. This court's adjourned.